Good afternoon. I'm Ravi Shankar. I'm NAFSA's President and Chair of the Board of Directors. Welcome to one of NAFSA's signature International Education Week events, the 2019 Senator Paul Simon Campus Internationalization Presidential Panel and Awards Ceremony. Thank you to everyone in the audience here in Washington, D.C., and those joining us online via the live stream chat webcast. We are here today to recognize the efforts of 8 higher education institutions and honor their achievements in campus internationalization. For the Simon Comprehensive Award, the winners are Brown University, Dickinson College, Kirkwood Community College, Miami University, and West Virginia University. For the Simon Spotlight Award, the winners are SUNY Buffalo State, University of Evansville, and Virginia Tech. Congratulations to our winning institutions, all of whom are represented here today, and of course, and we'll get to the panel in just a few minutes, special thanks and welcome to 5 of the presidents of the award-winning institutions who are with us today. Catherine S. Conway Turner, President, SUNY Buffalo State. Gregory P. Crawford, President, Miami University. Margie Ansein, President, Dickinson College. E. Gordon Gee, President, West Virginia University, and Laurie Sundberg, President, Kirkwood Community College. Ladies and gentlemen, NAFSA believes that international education advances learning and scholarship, fosters understanding and respect among people of diverse backgrounds and perspectives, is essential for developing globally competent individuals and builds leadership for the global community. We believe that international education lies at the core of an interconnected world characterized by peace, security, and well-being for all. NAFSA believes that diversity in our classroom, our communities, and our workplaces is our strength. We aspire to an environment in which every student and scholar seeking the benefits of international education finds a path, and every institution of higher education integrates international perspectives into its teaching, research, and service missions. We aspire to the enlightened international relations, a globally engaged citizenry, and a more peaceful world. As international educators, it is our responsibility to make sure we create a welcoming and engaging environment for our students. We as educators and administrators must continue building bridges worldwide and showing prospective international students that they are welcome on our campuses and in our classrooms. We're living in globally challenging times. At such times, it is our responsibility to increase engagement with our colleagues around the world and to advocate for students who we know to be assets to our campuses and communities. Each of our efforts to diversify and internationalize our campuses pave the way for the larger goal of creating a more welcoming, globally engaged United States and strengthening ties across the international community. The institutions we are recognizing today are leading the way in achieving that goal. Whether through their work to fully integrate international education throughout their campuses, or their innovative initiatives and programs that contribute to global learning, these institutions have showcased how international education is an asset to every community. On behalf of NAFSA and the international education community, thank you for recognizing the importance of campus internationalization to our campuses, our communities, and our country, and congratulations again. Before introducing Martin Simon, I want to thank Northeastern University for their support of the live streaming of our event today. Now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Martin Simon, the son of the late distinguished Senator Paul Simon, to say a few words. As we all know, Senator Simon was a stalwart advocate for international education in a globally engaged nation. One of the last great issues he championed was developing a more globally informed student body through study abroad. His son Martin has carried on this legacy as chair of the Board of Counselors of the Paul Simon Public Policy Institute at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, and through his steadfast support of NAFSA's efforts towards passage of the Senator Paul Simon Study Abroad Act, We're honored to be joined today by Martin and his wife, Julie. So, Martin?
Thank you, Ravi. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone. There we go. Dr. Bremer, it's great to see you again.
Good to see you.
Presidents all, congratulations and welcome to Washington.
Thank you.
For all of the years that NAFSA has been doing this event, I've had the honor to come here and help present these awards, with the exception of last year. Last year I had a scheduling conflict and my daughter, Corey, was tapped to come and fill in for me. And by all accounts, she did a good job, right? She told her own personal story of how international travel had influenced her educational path, and I'm proud to say that she is about to graduate with a master's degree in intercultural communication. And as she alluded to last year, she applied for a Fulbright and got it, and she is now headed to Uruguay to teach for a year. So go Corey. But, so she did so well last year, I thought maybe it was time to pass the torch and let the next generation of Simons take over this task. Until I got this year's book. And I found that one of the institutions here is the only college that rejected her application when she was shopping for school some years ago. And now, my daughter's not a violent person, but out of an abundance of caution, I thought maybe Dad should come back this year. So, I just hope that this is not why President Paxson from Brown is not here on the stage. Okay.
No comment.
Well, all of you obviously are doing wonderful things on your campuses, or you wouldn't be up here receiving these awards. I don't have time to talk about each and every one of you, but I do want to give a special shout out to Dickinson College, being not only were they an inaugural winner of this award, but they are now the first two-time winner of the Comprehensive Award. So how about an extra round of applause for them? And President Gee, I would be remiss if I didn't give you a shout out simply for your bow tie, sir. My father. The bow tie was my father's trademark symbol, and not that the deck was stacked in your favor as a result, but you definitely get the Best Dressed Award here today, sir. Something that President Ensign had said in her comments in the book and talking about her work in Nigeria struck me, and I thought, frankly, I thought you were channeling my father when I read this, when you said that a lack of international knowledge is one of our greatest national security threats. That was truly a belief of my dad and part of the motivation behind why, in the wake of 9/11, he decided to team up with NAFSA and start the ball rolling on creating what has become the Senator Paul Simon Study Abroad Act. I know I sound like a broken record every year when I come up here saying that we're this close. We're this close again toward passage of this legislation. We've got 15 co-sponsors in the House, 6 in the Senate, waiting on the slow wheels of progress in Congress to actually make this thing happen this year. But I look to all of you for support back home on your campuses to talk this up. There's no, Dad's vision was to send 1 million undergraduates abroad annually. Within 10 years from the inception of this program. That would truly democratize study abroad, make it the norm and not the exception for American college students. It is an admirable goal. You all are, some of you on your campuses I know have more than 50% already, which is impressive, but nationally we still have just 2%, even less than 2%, that study abroad for credit every year. So in order to build those bridges that Ravi talked about, we need to move the needle here and get this bill passed. So I look forward to handing out these awards in a little while, and again, congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Now we'd like to get the present panel started. To do that, I'll turn things over to Dr. Esther Brimmer, the Executive Director and CEO of NAFSA, Association of International Educators. Dr. Brimmer will be the moderator for this evening's panel. Esther?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both to Ravi and Martin. It's good to see you and good to see your support, and good to see all of you here in the room and joining us online. So good afternoon. I am so pleased to be here today to recognize the outstanding leadership on internationalization demonstrated by the 8 winning institutions and the 5 colleges and universities whose presidents are here today as we celebrate the value and legacy of the late Senator Paul Simon. Internationalization is reflected in the core ethos, values, and cultures of these institutions, preparing their students to be truly global citizens and future world leaders. It is imperative for our higher education leaders today to champion international education and global learning efforts. For our format today, I'm going to start off by asking each of the presidents to respond to a general question about internationalization on their campus, and we'll go in order there. And then we'll have a chance to dig a little bit deeper in the conversation, and I will ask you specific questions about your institutions. And we'll make sure to have time at the end for questions and answers with our audience here today. So, to get us started, if we may start off with an opening general question, President Conway-Turner, would you speak of the imperative for higher education leaders to champion and drive internationalization efforts on their campuses? Why is international higher education important? And why is winning the Senator Paul Simon Award for Campus Internationalization important to your institution?
Thank you. Well, first, to attack your first question, why is internationalization important in 2021 and moving forward? We all know that globalization is here. The connections that we have between our countries are layered and are not going away. That we know that the kind of work that we do to solve any problem, to move anything forward, really is happening across the globe. It is not done in one country, it's not done in the United States, it's not done in any particular country. And so to prepare our next generation of leaders to be able to understand the importance of working across the boundaries is really what education is really all about. And in order to do that, it really requires a cross-cultural competence that really can be developed in a number of ways, but best developed through international programs, study abroad, and really having your feet on the grounds in another country. Because once you do a study abroad, short or long term, and you find yourself having to wrestle with a different culture, a different way of life, a different way of answering questions, you learn a lot about yourself, you learn about the other country, and you also understand that there are multiple ways to do this work. And so if the problems that our world faced were easy, we would have already solved them. So they're complex. And so I think that particularly the imperative today and moving forward is to really join together to understand and to wrestle with these issues. And so internationalizing our curriculum, getting students to study abroad, and providing opportunities for scholars from abroad to come to our campuses really enriches that discussion, that dialogue. So I think the imperative is quite clear, and the time is now and moving forward, and we shouldn't waste another moment not moving the needle on this. And you also asked why the Simon Award is important to our campus. Well, first of all, we're very, very humbled by this recognition to be associated with someone who's been such a wonderful champion of international programs, internationalization. It is a goal that we have as a campus, and so it's a great affirmation of our work. But we also know that as we do this work, that we continue our gathering new people to be champions with us. And so this kind of recognition helps us all on our campuses to be able to say, yes, this is important, and that it's recognized as important by a national organization and a group of people that really commit to this work. So I think that it really will add additional sort of oomph to our work as we champion and move forward.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. President Crawford.
Yes, well, thank you, and it's just extraordinarily exciting to be here with so many wonderful universities to accept this award, and it's just fantastic of all the hard work that you do, and we're so delighted. Great answer, my goodness. I don't know what to say. But you know, the globalization and internationalization is certainly the defining feature of the 21st century. And you know, we owe it to our students to train them and to educate them in these areas. And I kind of look at it in two ways. First, it's on sort of the personal growth side, and then on the career growth side. And on the personal growth, I think it's just neat that they can gain independence from their learning outside of the United States, for example, to lose those support structures and those advantages that they may have in their home country, and then just get thrown into the deep end, so to speak, and have to wrestle with those issues of living somewhere else. And I think second of all is just the acquiring a global, not just competence, but confidence, to be able to work in this complex world and have the confidence to be able to go out there and do it and work across boundaries and geographical borders and so forth. And then certainly on seeing the other side, I mean, many students will get put into a different culture. It'll be the first time that they may be the minority, the outsider and so forth. And that's just a wonderful learning experience. And then I do believe, I'm a physicist by training, but you know, and I love laboratories, but I do believe that the international experience is a living laboratory for the liberal arts. And so they can get out there and engage what they've learned in the classroom through their general requirements or the liberal arts core. And then on the professional side, I love this example. I was at a career services center and talking to a big company, and they were going to hire somebody, and they said, you know, this student or our new employee is going to invent something in the US. We'll take it to India and have it designed, off to Malaysia to have it manufactured, and over to China to sell it. And when you think about that example, it's pretty powerful, the kind of person that we need to be graduating to work in that really complex world, to cross the geographical borders, the languages, the cultures, the religions, and so forth. So I think those are the two big things of why we do it. And I do think, you know, peace and security equals probably understanding and collaboration across the world. And then on the award, we're so happy. It's just a great award, and to be in this class of universities and so forth, but it truly validates the hard work of all of our colleagues and faculty and staff and so forth, and students that have been working on international efforts for a very long time. And so we couldn't be more delighted for them for all of their work. And then there's no doubt that it really elevates the visibility of our programs and getting out there, and it probably helps with recruiting a little bit. but nevertheless, it's just a fantastic award. And it really does show the progress that we've made when we set goals years ago, that we've been able to achieve them and then be honored with such a prestigious award. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. President Ensign, what are your views?
Thank you, and thanks to my esteemed colleagues for their thoughtful answers. As we look to the future, I think, the international challenges we all know are enormous, and the future will require for us, for our students, for our children, probably a level of international understanding and coordination and cooperation unparalleled in human history. So we better get this right. And by almost any measure, we're not, as Martin pointed out. Whether it's study abroad, our low numbers, whether it's students studying languages, whatever it is, we are not realizing the potential that we need to be. So I think it is our greatest national security threat. And we're thrilled at Dickinson to win this for a second time, and the leadership is in the room that has been working on this for the past 40 years. Our provost has been with us for 44 years, and he has been deeply, deeply committed to global education. And it has taken that long to build a campus-wide culture that is completely global. So we're honored to receive it again. I thank our head of our global center who is here, but I think it is our most important area to be working on. It is our imperative. So we're honored to receive it, and I think we should all use the platform to make sure we talk as much as we can about the importance of international education. Thank you.
Thank you. President Gee.
Well, thank you very much. I'm first of all honored to be here with all of you, and I won this award because of my bow tie. I saw that. As a matter of fact, I've been wearing bow ties since 15. That was before Senator Simon was born. I went to Lincoln's inauguration, but anyway, it's great to be here because of the fact that I think that we all understand that the world is very small. And as the world has gotten smaller and more complex, the notion of us moving from these vertical relationships to horizontal relationships are very important. Internal within our universities, departments and colleges tend to limit us to the way that we think about the world that surrounds us, and so I think it's very, very important that we have this kind of conversation on our campuses, but that we also open up this kind of conversation with our colleagues around the country and then around the world. You know, it's a very ornery time in this country. We know that, and I think that there is probably only one instrument in this country, which is called a university or a college, which allows us to have conversations that go across various parts of the human existence, and I think that really is what globalization is about. It's as much a mindset as anything else. You know, I'm president now of a very big university in a very small state, and so the opportunity for students to come from 118 countries speaking 100 different languages to West Virginia, which has always been quite an isolated state, an energy state, and to have people be there from all of these various places and have that exposure for our students, particularly those from West Virginia. I was just in the southern part of the state of West Virginia yesterday, and I took a young man with me, a very bright young man, wonderful young kid. First time he'd ever been on an airplane, and I told him not to get used to it because not everyone has the university airplane, but I do. But anyway,
that would be true.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not for long, but nonetheless, the fact that and we talked about what I was going to be doing today, and I told him that we were going to be celebrating our award for international education, and he said, you know, he'd not even been out of this little small county until he came to the university, but now he wants to go abroad. The other thing is you know, I think that you think about the passport as the driver's license to the world, and we need to really start thinking about it that way and taking advantage of it. My own observation is I came from a very small town in Utah, went on a Mormon mission, spent 3 years, learned 2 languages, opened up the world to me, and I want to have the same thing for every student that I impact, and I think that's important. Finally, just to win this award is very important. It's about damn time. No, just kidding. Just kidding. I can't believe that you won it twice. So anyway,
We know you've been associated with more than one winner. We know.
yeah, but you know, I think about it. Of course, I was president of Brown University and I was president of Ohio State, who have both one of these. So I kind of think I'm a 3-time winner. How do you think so? We're very honored. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. President Sundberg.
Who wants to follow President Gee?
Yeah.
I am not nearly that funny. But anyway, it's an honor to be here. Thank you to all my colleagues up here. Thank you to NAFSA. I mean, we completely appreciate this honor. As the only community college on the panel and as a winner, I think the perspective that I can bring is that we provide education for students to go on after 2 years, sometimes to the workforce, and then we also have students who transfer. And so the internationalization of our campus and our college has been hugely important for our employers, because our employers want to have students who are globally competent, who are culturally very sensitive, and so it's been this huge opportunity for us, for our career tech students, which you wouldn't normally think would benefit from from internationalization, but it has been hugely, hugely important to our employers. And then, of course, for our students who transfer, it just has created a tremendous opportunity. And I think leadership of the program is here in the room, and what I can tell you about winning this award, it's an affirmation to us. Our vision is to be the community college leader in regional, national, and global education. That's part of our vision. And so the fact that we have won this award really is just, heartwarming, because it really speaks to the fact that we are living our vision. And so, huge honor for us, happy to be here, happy to learn from all of my colleagues here on stage as well about all of the great things that they're doing. And thank you, Martin, and your family for supporting this. It is a tremendous opportunity, and you are so right. It is probably our greatest national security threat. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, President Sundberg. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you the next question. We'll go the reverse order.
Okay,
I'll
I don't
give
have
you-
to follow President Key.
But indeed, as we highlight in the publication, there are many lessons learned from these excellent institutions. But if I were to ask you to pick one key lesson that you'd like to highlight, what would it be?
I think it's the partnerships that are so critical. We are part of a global education network with other colleges. In fact, I just got back from Singapore Friday. They're one of our partners, and we also have a partner in Australia. And so what I can tell you is that the lessons learned are that partnerships across countries, across colleges, is probably one of the most important value that this has brought to our college. The international exchanges that we've had, our faculty have gone, our students have gone, and it's just, I'm in Iowa, and so when you talk about West Virginia, right, I'm in Iowa, it has opened up a world of opportunity to our students, some of which who have not traveled. And even faculty, employees, we have staff who come back, and I go to that reception, and I hear them talk that this was their first international experience, and it's changed their life. And so that's probably the lesson I've learned, is that partnerships and really developing these relationships across the world, across the globe, has been just invaluable to Kirkwood and to our students and faculty. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. President Gee.
So I think there are a couple of things that I could say. First of all, I think hire really good people. Have great colleagues. Have people who believe, people who are ministers, not job holders. Because I think international work is really a ministerial position. You just have to preach and believe. And I have really wonderful people. I had them right here. I've been fortunate to work with William Brunstein for a long time. And, many of you know he's kind of the dean of, well, he's really old too, but he's he's the dean of internationalization, and so and we've had a great partnership here for a long period of time, and my other colleagues who are here. So I think that's number one. I think that so you talked about the external world. We have to also talk about the internal world. Internally within institutions, you have to cultivate buy-in. You have to have people believe that this, as part of their portfolio, is enormously important. So it's not just about physics or chemistry or any other thing. It's about that kind of competent collaboration across the spectrum of the university internally, and that the international dimension brings great importance to that. And obviously, many of us attract international students at the graduate level and the postgraduate level that really come and make an enormous difference. So those are two things: really good people, true believers, and then secondly of all, cultivate that buy-in internally. Have everyone believe that that internationalization of their institution is a responsibility of everyone, not just an office.
I think if I can tag on to that, I think that you make an important point, because I think that's what I see. I've been at Kirkwood now a year and a half. Came from another institution, and that's what I see internally, is that they have developed that buy-in, and they've developed a pride that makes us unique, and they want to continue to encourage their colleagues to go as well. And so I think you hit upon a really important point in terms of internal to the institution. It is external, of course, but internal, it is a huge component to bringing us together.
Thank you. President Ensign.
Yeah, to follow both of you, our external partners are critically important. And as I said, we've been developing them for 50 years, so that's awfully important. But I completely agree with you about the internal buy-in, especially with faculty. I think one of the things that sets us apart is that 40% of our faculty have either been directors for 2 years at one of our international sites or have taken students abroad themselves. And they now are passionate about international education, whether they're in physics or chemistry or English. And I think that has led to these extraordinarily high study abroad numbers, 65% of our senior class. And it's not just the students you might expect. It's underserved students, it's athletes, it's scientists, it's students of color, because everyone now expects that students will study abroad. And so I think creating that culture internally is critically important. Thank you.
Thank you. President Crawford.
Yep, thank you. So lessons learned, I think on the partnership side, the relationships are just huge. And then taking the time to build those relationships. It shouldn't be rushed, it shouldn't go fast, because everyone and every partner has different motivations for doing this. But I do believe the one big aspect of it is when you're building these partnerships is to make sure you have mission alignment and your core values match with the other institution so that you both resonate with what you're trying to accomplish together. And then on the internal side of things, I really do believe on the international front, it can't just be a single goal or one department, but it really has to be intertwined through the tapestry of the entire organization.
Thank you. President Conway.
Yes, and I really agree with all of the other panelists and the points that they've brought up. The one thing that I would say I would add as a lesson learned is that when you talk about the internal work of the campus, yes, but I want to go even further, the internal work of the individual. I think that that is so important and really a takeaway for international programs, that the growth that happens as an individual, how that individual stretch themselves to see the world in a different way, that oftentimes, whether it's a faculty member or staff member or student and you go abroad, you go with assumptions that you think you know what you know, and then you get there and you realize you did not know. And so I think the takeaway for me is how important this work is for the absolutely internal development and understanding of yourself and others in a way that breaks open stereotypes and breaks open a sense of other and a sense that people are very different in terms of the wants and desires. And I think that that is a real takeaway for international programs.
Very interesting. Picking up on that, we've talked about the importance of being able to travel abroad, but for many students will not travel abroad, but will have the opportunity to meet international students in their classrooms. Can we talk a little bit about the contribution of international students to our classrooms and our communities and our campuses? President Conway Turner.
Yes, I would say that the thing that I would pick up first is the contribution they make because of the lived experience that they bring to the discussions. So as you know, in classrooms that are diverse, we have a very diverse campus. Over 52% of our students are from underrepresented groups. And so there's a lot of new thought and diverse ideas brought in the classroom. But when you add to that also the richness of individuals that really are from different parts of the world, it just opens up questions that would not happen unless those individuals were in the classroom. So they really do bring a perspective, a lived experience, and a way of asking questions that perhaps no one else would if they were not there. So when you think about the air around you, you just don't even see it because it's here. But someone else that comes in with a really different perspective will see things that you don't see. So I think they add immeasurably to the discussion and the dialogue and the perspective and the lived experience that we want all of our students to have in all of our classes as they're grappling with whatever the topic is. If it's physics, or if it's psychology, or biology, we want that richness, and they bring that perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, we talk a lot about, at Miami University, and I think many of us do, that we train students in both character and intellect. On the character side, just the ability to have the courage to encounter others from a different place is a big educational experience. Have the empathy to sort of address what the others feel and see and how they sort of live in the environment is a big educational experience. And I also think having the humility, because you will make mistakes around folks from different cultures, and just learning from those mistakes and how to manage those is really important. And I do believe when you mix up students and they live, work, study, and play together, foreigners or the other turns into friends. And then if you think about the contrast and differences turns into compliments, and the wariness that you may feel turns into a welcoming kind of culture. And so I think on that side of the character piece, it really does add a lot with the international students coming in. And then there's no doubt that there's just skill sets that you learn. There's the diversity piece that all of our students need to learn about. There's students that interact with others in broader cultures, often form better informed opinions. And then for sure, the communication aspect, to be able to communicate across culture and so forth, I think is big for our students.
We're at a critical moment in our country's history in terms of international students. Your own data shows the big declines that we're facing. And the most alarming piece of data is that international students are questioning whether they're welcome anymore in the US. So I think we all have to be really deliberate in how we welcome them and make sure that we do intentional work in what you're both saying, in intercultural competency. And that's one of the things we've really begun to emphasize at Dickinson, both with our international students and our diverse students from around the country, because one of the greatest challenges we're facing is dealing positively with difference, whether it's in the US, whether it's with international students. So I just feel we must join the international with the intercultural and make it clear to international students as well as domestic that we see these things linked.
Right, and I appreciate your mentioning the importance of welcoming international students. Indeed, NAFSA is proud to work with so many campuses across the country on the You Are Welcome Here enterprise, because it's so important what all of you are doing to welcome students.
Let's try the word joy. How does that sound? They're joyful. It's joyful when we have these students on campus. Have you ever been to a Saudi sing-along? It was great fun the other night, and a Chinese dance concert. I think all of those things in and of themselves add so much to the fabric and texture of the university. But there's a great joy about having people with so many different views and so much cultural heritage, as long as they're sharing it. The thing that worries me is the same thing that I think we see all the time. We talk about having intercultural opportunities. Well, they only exist if people take advantage of them. And so if you walk into a large cafeteria and you see all the Chinese students eating together, all the black students eating together, all the Hispanic students, we are simply places, we're simply in a holding pattern. And so the question is, how do we internally, once we have these wonderful students, how do we make certain that they become absolutely a part of the fabric? How are we the weavers to make that fabric work? And so I think that that is an incredibly important part of having them on campus.
Thank you. Thank you. President Sandberg.
Yes, I think from my perspective, we're not as diverse as maybe some of the other campuses. We're about 25% diverse. And so I think initially, years ago, it was a way to really diversify our campus. But what's happened in recent years is that Iowa's had a pretty large segment of refugees and immigrants move in. And what's happened is that they see this international population that we have and they feel comfortable. And so we see those students coming to us either for English as a second language or to enroll in certificate or degree programs. And so it's really had this added benefit of being welcoming now to this new community that we're embracing. And so it's really had really an outcome that we didn't probably initially see early on, but really has placed us in such a good position to welcome our new communities coming in. So it's been very, very valuable. Thank you.
Several of you have talked about the importance of partnerships as an important component of internationalization, and indeed this collaboration can be quite important. Could you talk a little further about the role of partnerships, particularly in internationalization, and then we'll turn to perhaps the role of research. So maybe talk a little further about partnerships and others.
So partnerships for us have been very, very important. We're part of the Global Education Network, which is colleges from Canada, Australia, Singapore, and of course us. We also have 15 other partnerships with other countries. And it has really, I think, been key for us to develop those relationships for our students to feel comfortable. When we know that when our students go there, they're well taken care of, vice versa when they come to us. And really what happens is as time passes, we see more and more ways that the partnership can be expanded and that we can have more experiences. And so we have a goal that every employee and every student will have an international experience while they're with us. It might not be study abroad, but they will have at least one international experience with us. And so those partnerships really have, that's one of the concepts that really emerged from that, is how can we do this in a different way for students who maybe can't go, but still want to give them that experience. Thank you.
Good. Others would like to comment either on partnerships or on research and then the role.
Oh, do you want me to comment? Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. So,
Anytime.
Yeah. Well, I think that I think one of the issues that we really face in terms of partnerships is the fact that they need to be much more deeply seated. You know, when I was president of Ohio State, we had about 500 or 600 of these memoranda of understanding, or whatever you want to call them. I call them love notes. You know, we love you, and you love us, and you'll never see us again. And we have about 400 of those at Ohio State, and so, or at where are we now? West Virginia, and I think that partnership is not just not having something signed. Mm-hmm. It's really deep. It's really a deep effort. And so what we've tried to do at our places, we've really developed these global portals. We're going to pick 4 or 5 places in the world in which we have significant opportunities. Every institution of the 4,500 colleges in this universities in this country, of which I've been president of half, but anyway, they all have different competencies, and they need to play to their roles rather than everyone trying to replicate everyone else. And so we have great strengths at our institution in certain areas. Petroleum engineering. So we're in Dammam, Saudi Arabia, training the petroleum engineers in Saudi Aramco. And those kind of deep-seated partnerships are much more meaningful, I think, than some of the things that we're trying to do right now. So I would urge all of us to become much more focused in terms of the kind of thoughtful relationships that go much deeper in terms of faculty, staff, students, exchanges, research projects, et cetera, rather than saying that we have relationships all the way around the world.
Dr. Brimmer, I can speak to the research piece because we're unique as a community college. So we don't consider that a way to do research in the traditional sense, but we consider it in an applied way. And so I can give you an example. So we have our ag students. Most of those students are transfer students. They're going to go on to a university. And they're coming from lots of times family farms. And so they take an international experience to go to South America to learn how coffee is grown there. And that obviously is not one of their crops that they have in Iowa. And so it's this way to understand farming in a much more deep way, much more comprehensive way, and to understand how it's accomplished there. And so while we don't do research in the traditional sense of a university, the applied side of what we do is just as important, I think, to our students.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting example. Thank you. Thank you.
So I agree with you once again about the importance of deep and long-standing relationships. We have partner institutions around the world, some for the past 30 or 40 years, and I think that's contributed greatly to our being able to internationalize the campus. But we also have an unusual partner in the US who's helped us to make us an even more global campus. We're a mile from the US Army War College, where international fellows from between 75 and 80 countries around the year are there. And we have allowed their spouses and children to take classes for free on our campus. Our students in our multilingual writing center actually tutor those international fellows as they write their papers and so on. The collaboration has expanded the last couple of years. We've begun to work together to offer graduate courses in peace building. So I think that unique partnership is really important, both for us and for the War College.
That's such an interesting example indeed, because of the work being done on peacekeeping at the War College complements so much the work you're talking about peace building.
Right, and one other partnership we've just begun to build that I think we should all think about is with one of the larger high school study abroad organizations. And I think we have to, capture young people younger before they get to us. And make sure they're thinking of international education and studying abroad when they're, before they get to college. So I think we should all think about expanding those partnerships.
Well, indeed, and we're finding at NAFSA that there's also interest, for example, from administrators at secondary schools who are also recognizing that they are working with international education issues. Indeed, thank you. Thank you.
Great. Well, partnerships, I agree with everyone. Maybe I'll say a little bit about research. But I had an opportunity in my career to really be engaged in Haiti. And it was quite interesting because it's a lesson learned, but we had a medical and a scientific solution, but that wasn't enough, of course. What we needed was an anthropologist who knew about the culture. I needed a historian to figure out what the origin of that was for, and I needed a sociologist to figure out the approach. And then when you think about this on the international scale, it really is truly transdisciplinary. It's more than just combining two disciplines or 3 or 4 disciplines together, but it's interacting with partners that's outside of the academy. And so we're really big into the transdisciplinary excellence, which really bears its fruit on the international stage. And we have a wonderful program, a research project in Zambia with the University of Zambia and also the Zambia Environmental Protection Agency there, which is kind of an outside partner. And they focus in on the mining and the effect of mining on water and both the streams, the rivers, the lakes, and the ground table and so forth. But it truly brings together 3 areas. It brings together the health, it brings together environmental studies, and it also brings together climate scientists and so forth. And so I do believe on the international scale, you can really get involved with these transdisciplinary programs and really take something that seems too big because there's too many people involved, and to make it make solutions come out of really just combining those disciplines.
Well, a couple of comments about research first. Many of our international programs really began as collaborations with faculty in different countries. And so that was the first connection, and their rich connection, and they're working together and getting to know each other, and then talking about the possibility of student exchange grew out of that. So research, I think, is really a wonderful sort of place where that can develop. Those kind of collaborations can then turn into other things. And in terms of the partnerships, I would say that one of the things that we see is the recognition that partnerships require caring feeding. And so that I have our assistant provost sitting down front. He racks up a lot of miles flying back and forth, having those conversations in front of people about how we're going to move forward, and then inviting them here. And so it shouldn't just be a love letter. It's got to be that sort of care and feeding, that it's a real relationship. And from that relationship, other things can really build. And that if a partner only thinks that, you're not that serious, then, maybe not much will happen. But it's really through that really layered conversations and being willing to invite them over and see them, go to visit them, that we really have seen things grow.
Now I'd like to turn to talk to a little more specific points about each of your institutions. President Ensign, if I may start with you. That, of course, Dickinson is a 2-time winner of the Comprehensive Award. Can you comment on the journey, since you're the internationalization journey from 2003 to 2019?
Well, I've only been at Dickinson for 2 years, so I've watched, and I'm proud of what our staff has done. So we've increased the number of international students from about 5% to 14%. Study abroad has gone way up for some of the reasons that we've talked about, to 65%. Half of our classes have an international component. So there's really a culture of global education at Dickinson that permeates everything we do. It's a big part of our mission. It's connected with the other pieces, which are civic engagement and sustainability. So when we think about moving forward in a new program, those 3 pillars always have to be a part of it. But I really want to emphasize, we're talking a great deal about international education and diversity and having all these wonderful students on our campus. I really want to say we must be more deliberate with the intercultural competency. There's a whole field out there. There are life skills that we all need domestically and internationally, and that's what we've launched the last 2 years, which is a campus-wide intercultural competency initiative, and I think we're beginning to learn a great deal from that.
President Tsai, could you explore that a little bit more and tell us a little bit more about that initiative on intercultural learning?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the big things we face in the U.S. is dealing effectively and civilly with difference. And we are in divided camps. It's not saying anything new. The field of intercultural competency helps us to understand, as you've said, our own worldviews, our own lived experiences, and it can give us a set of life skills to deal very positively with difference. So what we did initially is make sure my entire senior staff and the board took the intercultural development inventory. And that was really very powerful for all of us. And we've moved that down through students and faculty and staff, and using a train-the-trainer model to make sure we're beginning to develop that competency that's required.
Thank you, thank you. President Sundberg, turning to you. You've talked about the importance of the Global Education Network. Can you talk a little bit particularly about the approach to global workforce development and some of the activities that your institution's been involved in, and how do you see the sort of engagement, the skills that will be important for students as they go out into the workforce?
Oh, well, I think hugely important. You wouldn't think in Iowa that we would have multinational companies, but we do. And they come to us and they're looking for students graduates who can actually come into the workplace and who can go to Brazil or who can go to South America and be able to exchange and work in those environments. And so Kirkwood provides those opportunities. You know, it used to be that if a student wanted a study abroad program, a community college wasn't in their choice because community colleges didn't offer that kind of programming. And so I think that what it does for us particularly is it gives our students, the ones who do want to transfer, the opportunity to come to us and to have those experiences. But we are also providing those same opportunities for those students who are going to go directly into the workforce. And so it has just been a wonderful opportunity for us. I am new to Kirkwood. I've been there a year and a half, and I have been meeting with employers, this first year and a half that I've been there, and I can't tell you the number of employers that are so grateful for the competencies that our students have and that they come to them with. So it's just been hugely important.
At Kirkwood, you have Global Service Awards for faculty members as well.
Faculty and staff.
And could you comment a little bit about what that's meant for faculty and staff?
Sure. So faculty and staff, they can apply to a Global Education Award, and we have several trips that they can go on, study abroad kinds of things. We have a trip that goes to Greece, and they work in a Syrian refugee camp. We have one that goes to Morocco, I believe. I think there's probably about 10 of them, and they choose the one that they're most interested in, but then they also have to come back and they have to write a paper and tell everyone within that we have a reception about how it impacted them and why it was so important. And that's the reception that I go to, and you hear people who have never traveled abroad or internationally. It changed their life, which then allows them, when they interact with students, to be able to help change theirs. And so it has just been this wonderful experience that I've gotten to be a part of at Kirkwood that I didn't have in my previous position. And it has opened my eyes to all that we can do with global education, because I think that maybe I was a little bit constrained with a 2-year student population, and what I've learned is that we have all kinds of opportunities for our students and employees. So the college funds that. We have a fund for that, and so they don't have to pay for anything but incidentals, and it's our commitment to our employees to build it within our campus, right? To actually internationalize it internally to move us forward.
President Crawford, under the Miami 2020 plan, you have set goals for internationalization and metrics. How did you develop the metrics?
Well, that's a great question because we have a new plan now.
Sorry, 2021 plan. So current.
It's a kind of an interesting evolution, though, that I think maybe many people may see in the future as well. But our Miami 2020 plan, it was sort of post-recession. It was created, and there was really definite goals around partnerships and around intercultural, multicultural kind of goals for the university as a whole. And there was metrics. There was metrics of counting partnerships and this sort of thing. And it was really about numbers and trying to build it up. And at that time, it was the right thing to do. It was truly to see if we could really grow this in a way that made sense. And then we just went through a strategic planning process this past year, and it changed in a way, the way in which we're thinking about our international piece. First, we're kind of thinking about it now like inclusive excellence. Like when you take diversity plus academic excellence, you've got inclusive excellence. And we're thinking about international that way too, that it's no longer a single goal like our previous plan, but it truly has to be integrated throughout all of our goals, whether it's research, undergraduate, or community building, and so forth. And so we've really created it that way that it's now a part of everyone's portfolio and everybody's, your performance increase every year. So we'll be looking at that as well as part of everyone's and not just as a single goal.
I understand that at Miami University you also have that the faculty has been very involved in faculty-led programs. Could you comment also a bit on the Maximizing Cross-Cultural Experiences resource guide?
Yes.
Because that's how do you use that?
Well, it's fantastic, and because we want to keep doing more and more and enhancing what we're doing on the international front, of course. And I think there's several things there that captures. One, it really brings together all the shared experiences so you can learn from others, I think, which is just fantastic. Second, we do have these things called J terms, and so January we can take off and take students around the world and so forth. And so many more faculty can get involved with these shorter term visits. And so what we wanted to do with this resource guide was also create a way in which the new and the younger faculty that are just coming in, there's just a low bar of entry to it to get to the international piece. And so it really trains them up real quick on how to move quickly that way. And then also, of course, it helps us assess our programs and so forth and how we're doing as we move forward with it. But it's a great resource for us.
Right. Thank you. And indeed, it's so interesting to hear each of the different resources that you've created. President Gee, could you comment a bit on the global portals and how that served as an important hub for internationalization?
Yeah, it harkens back to what I was talking about earlier, the fact that with all these love letters and a variety of other things going on, we were really not as focused as much as we wanted to be. And the other thing is this, I have a very strong belief, which William and I share, and that is the fact that I think that I'm not a great fan of building overseas campuses or whatever. I sort of feel like that's a little bit of, and dare I say it, cultural imperialism. So what I really believe in is the fact that I think you have to have deep-seated relationships. So we think of our global portals like an ambassadorial effort. And so we plant them in certain places. We started in Bahrain because of the fact that we have a very unique relationship with the Royal University for Women, which was started by graduates of the university. In China, we're now looking at South America, but the purpose of the portals is to act in that ambassadorial role, then to go out and explore with certain limited number of institutions ways in which we can partner with them, but in a much more deeply constructive international effort. And we think that is much more important. And I think in today's world, it's very critical that we have relationships which go beyond sort of the study abroad exchange, variety of other things, that they really do go to to the issue of competence and quality and effort and collaboration that are deep-seated. So that's what we're doing. We'll probably end up with about 4 or 5 of these, and we're very selective. We're selective with the institutions we work with, and they obviously are very selective with us. So we play to our strengths.
Indeed, indeed. West Virginia has also made real efforts to try to address financial barriers that so many students face from trying to participate in international programs. Could you come a little bit further on some things you do to try to really help access?
Yeah, you know, of course, in a large public university, you have many students who would love to study abroad, but or would love to have international experiences, but really do not have the means to do so. So we try to facilitate that in a number of ways. The way that we charge them, the way that it's really no cost other than just the immediate cost. We do a number of different kind of smaller programs. We have programs on global brigades where they go and do missionary work, if you will, medical work, a variety of other things for short periods of time. But we think that we have to, you know, if you, in a large public university where you have a real range of financial equations that you've got to make certain that you cannot put financial issues as a barrier. You've got to knock those down in order to make certain that people can have that kind of experience. So we have a number of different roads to salvation, and that's what we're doing.
President Conway Turner, of course, SUNY Buffalo State won its Spotlight Award, particularly for its work on international professional development schools. Would you comment a little bit more about the program and how it was started and developed?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Our International Professional Development School is to find a way for teacher educators to study abroad. So for those of you in the room that are from teacher education backgrounds, you know that the curriculum is highly prescribed. Very prescriptive for teachers, and that is very little room to be able to study abroad in the traditional sense. And so back in 2008, some faculty members got together to really try to see how this opportunity that we were working so hard to move throughout all of our students could also be affordable for teacher educators as well. And so they developed a program that either happens in J-term, which is our January term like yours, or summer, a 3 or 4 week program where we partner with schools and international locations so that teacher educators are able to go and to study in other locations, interact with school systems, and to learn the pedagogy there as well as share. So it's a very sort of unique way to provide an international experience within teacher education that is really quite rare for our programs.
In a sense, you are able to combine the local and the global in the programs. What's been the impact on the community?
Mm-hmm. It's really been amazing. So as many of our colleagues have said, international programs really, truly transform students. And so they come back and they really talk about what an impact that program had for them. But we're talking about people that will be teachers. Mm-hmm. And so the impact really is how it's going to impact the students in front of them and how they will teach other students. Now, we live in Buffalo, which is one of the refugee cities, and so we have a very diverse community around us of immigrants and refugees. And in fact, in our Buffalo public schools, 83 different languages are spoken at home. And so for our students, they are getting an experience that really directly will help them work within urban environments they're very diverse. And so they come back with some familiarity and some tools that they can directly use as they move into the teaching cadre.
All right, thank you, thank you. Now I'd like to open the floor to the audience here for questions and answers. I will ask that you raise your hand, wait to be recognized. We have microphones, so wait till we get the microphone to you. And of course, encourage you to ask a question as opposed to making a speech. So may I, do we have questions?
There we go.
Any initial questions? Thoughts or comments? Or comments from any of the colleagues whose presidents are here, who may also talk about their perspective on the program. So, any particular questions? Please, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Danae Brinson. I work at FHI 360 and formerly worked at Spelman College. I would like to ask, as we're talking a lot about partnerships, what would that look like and what would you recommend as we're coming to you as universities to partner with you? What would you like that to look like? What's the best practice?
Thank you. Open, whoever would like to respond.
Well, I can get us started. The first thing that I look at it in a partnership is it needs to be reciprocal. And so that it's really good for both sides of the partnership. And so it cannot be something that it's only going to benefit our students or our institution, but truly be a reciprocal partnership. And if that is the case, those are the kinds of partnerships that grow and sustain. If it's one-sided, they get broken easily.
I think for us, I think it's, and I think President Gee mentioned it earlier, is that it is more than just a signed document, that it's actually a partnership, and you actually try to work through some of those relationship pieces, and you try to, it's thoughtful, and you're trying to decide, is this really good for both sides, and how will we benefit from it? And so I think from my perspective, those are the kinds of things that we tend to look at is how deep could that relationship be, and what are the benefits beyond just, you know, a simple exchange.
Yeah, I think I would just add one other thing, and I think that is that you want to make certain that you're playing in the right wheelhouse. You know, if you came to me and said, "Gee, I'm very interested in partnering with you on the School of Massage," I'd just say no, because that's not my wheelhouse. But I think we have to play in the areas in which we have strengths, because if one is really strong and the other is not going to be able to contribute, or if it's a relationship that is not going to be valued, then I think that you don't start in that kind of a partnership.
Agree. Okay. Please.
William Brustein, West Virginia University. Martin Simon mentioned that 2% of our college students are studying abroad. So now we're talking about 98% of the students who, obviously we'd like more of them to go abroad, but they're not now. And we need globally competent students who will graduate our colleges and our universities. So I'd like to ask the panelists, what are you doing on your campus for the 98% of the students in terms of internationalizing the learning experience on campus in a coherent, outcome-driven, assessed way, so that we can feel confident that those who are graduating, who may not have had an education abroad experience, are really addressing the national security needs?
Okay, so I think I can go. I probably won't get all of these details completely accurate because I've been there a year and a half. But what I can tell you is that our commitment is that every student and employee has an international experience. That does not mean they're all going to go abroad. And so one example that I can give you is that we have one of our classes, it's a business class if I'm not mistaken, they actually have a project with students in Jordan. And so how do they facilitate that? They facilitate it through Zoom, but they actually work together with students in Jordan on this project. And so that's kind of the things that we're looking for. How can we get it into the classroom? And how can we get that experience, if they can't travel abroad, that they actually have that experience? And so we're doing those kinds of things. The very simple kinds of things, I think, in terms of conceptually, carrying them out, working on a team with people around the world, our students are finding is not as easy as what we might think. But that's what lots of companies do, their employees do. They work internationally on teams. And so that's one way that we've done it.
I think that is an important component of what we're trying to do, and that is the fact that obviously not everyone's going to be able to go abroad, nor should they.
Right.
And when you have a very large, complex university, that's impossible. But what you can do is you can start developing certifications for competency on the global scale, and that's what we have a global Mountaineer competency program whereby students themselves can can do additional work. They have a class, have a variety of other things, and then we give them a certificate, and then they can put it on their resume, and then they can say, well, you know, we have really worked in developing this concept of working of studying and thinking and engaging in what international issues and international education is about. So I think that there's so many different things we can do, but we have to make it a priority. We really do.
I think one of the things that we do that's really innovative is our Mosaic programs. And a mosaic is when a group of faculty come together with a group of students and say, let's look at an issue together. And that issue might be climate change, it might be post-genocide Rwanda, it might be immigration. So it's very innovative, and faculty work with students and usually have a semester-long course to prepare them, and then they don't always go for a whole semester to the city or the country. When I first became president, one mosaic was with Mediterranean migration, and students and faculty got together and said, why is it happening? What are the issues? What are the causes? What are the consequences? So to study something intensely and then go out and do field work and do research and come back is really an incredible program, and it's one of the ways that we're getting students who couldn't perhaps do a whole semester abroad.
I think one of the things we often forget about, too, is we have a lot of structure in place already through our liberal arts cores and our general education requirements. And we call it our global Miami plan, and so that each student has sort of an intercultural experience that goes along with their whatever major they have as well. And it was really refreshing to us to see when there was Hurricane Dorian, and then a bunch of students got together with the geographers and they applied geospatial satellite sensing to actually map the island to see that. And so some of those kids will never have an international experience like a true study abroad, but they're engaged online and through some other activities that we have.
I think that's key, because I think that that is what happens when you internationalize your campus, right? Is that you have faculty and staff going abroad and doing some of these trips, they bring it back to the classroom and it becomes infused into their coursework. And so you see those cultural experiences happening because the faculty have done these experiences. So I think that if you can get that, like it's infused in courses, it's infused in curricula, I mean, like you've made it, I feel like. Because that is what we're really trying to get, is that from the day that they get there, they are having those experiences and considering the world in that way.
And we're similar to the other folks in terms of trying to infuse it in lots of ways. One unique thing I would mention is that we have a festival every September. It's called the Anne Frank Festival. And actually, it started out from a theater faculty member, and they were going to do a theater production of Anne Frank. And because our campus is so diverse, there was a realization that it could not just be about the traditional Anne Frank, and so that there was a juxtaposition between Anne who was a genocide survivor from Rwanda and Anne Frank, bringing up issues of social justice. And so it's turned into a 15-year process of doing a festival every year where people talk about, we have a study abroad in Rwanda and so forth. They talk about those experiences, but they broaden it to really talk about social justice around the world through workshops and lectures and actually theater and music and art. And so it's become quite a tradition. So it's something sort of unique that we do in addition to the curriculum and other things.
Well, it is fascinating to hear about the examples of excellence and innovation represented by the winners of the Simon Award, who've talked about the importance of teamwork, the bringing together so many different parts of your campuses, and the impact on the community of bringing together the local and the global. So please join me in thanking the presidents and all of the Simon winners for their And I would like to turn the floor back over to the President, Ravi Shankar.
Although I was thinking massage could be an interesting intercultural notion. But thank you once again for your insights into the challenges and the opportunities that sort of spread the gamut of integration, engagement, interdisciplinary approaches, alternative ways of looking at study abroad or study away, and to share your unique approaches to the issues of comprehensive international education. So thank you very much once again. So if you can give them a round of applause. So thank you, Esther and Presidents. That concludes our presidential panel. Now I would like to invite all of you to the awards reception, which is being held in the Palm Court Ballroom. And I think Michael and all the NAFSA staff will guide you it's just down the hallway. And for those listening online, we thank you for joining us, and we wish you a pleasant evening. But I also would like to thank our global partners and supporters of NAFSA who are in this room. And I would also like to shout out for my board colleagues who are here. I think there's a couple of them here who came to attend the session as well. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the evening. And I look forward to speaking with most of you today. So thank you.